Welcome to Tactical Lore Episode 2. In Episode 1, we covered Resident Evil 1, why the setting is a pretty good setup, why berets suck, and why having stars be a task force would have worked a little better in order to justify the different uniforms, weapons, and abilities, but this game was developed in the 90s, so we get it. They're going off of information available to them, and like I said, this is not a critique or a review. I love Resident Evil, it's just for information and entertainment. Characters. So for Resident Evil 2, let's start with the characters Leon and Claire. I think the writers were clever choosing the backgrounds for these characters and works as a setup to justify the tactical proficiency for both of these characters. Leon's a rookie cop, 21 years old, which is, by the way, the minimum age for lots of police departments in the US. Some sources say he breaks up with his girlfriend, gets drunk, stays at a motel, and reports late. Others say he reports a date earlier. Some things probably changed from the remake to the original, and also through localization, but I like this. I had a FTO, which is a field training officer. When he first got hired, he did something similar. He was going through a divorce. He lived in a motel for like a week until he got sent to the academy. So him being a rookie and surviving is something some other videos and some articles say is unrealistic. I disagree. Some police academies are intense and anywhere from 10 weeks to 9 months.
And how long is the academy, and is it difficult?
The academy is 6 months long, and of course it is difficult.
PT, or physical training, is mandatory at these academies. Proficiency with a weapon is mandatory, so I think a rookie has a better chance than a fat, old, injured police officer of surviving something like this, with the exception of officers in special units or who have special assignments. You see, PT is typically not mandatory once you're hired and you have your post certification. That's why you see officers looking so thick after the probationary period ends. Plus, some people are just exceptional. There are plenty of stories of rookies doing all sorts of crazy things, and Leon's family were apparently mobsters and they got murdered. I'm gonna assume that he's used to violence and being around guns. Check out the Digital Trends article exploring this. Tactical tidbit. As far as RPD, we have no clue how they handle officers' assignments and how many sub-offices they have or how they handle hiring. This game was created in Japan, and Japan has the National Police Agency, which apparently does not oversee, but sets general standards for their police force. And there's like 6 regional police bureaus, plus the Hokkaido and the Tokyo Metro. On the Resident Evil Capcom site, it mentions Leon applying for an assignment to the Raccoon Police Department. On the wiki, it states that he requested assignment. Police departments have various procedures for transfers and applications. Some have their own police academies granting the necessary post certification, which is akin to a bar license for lawyers. It stands for Peace Officers Standards and Training, while others send recruits to external training centers. Some departments accept individuals with a valid post certification from accredited academies. In the case of Raccoon City, they might have their own academy. I mean, they got that umbrella money. Or there may be an external academy that's certified by the state where they get their recruits or where they send their newly hired officers, which are probably hired under a type of conditional contract. If you pass the academy, we'll continue on with the hiring process. If you don't, probably get fired. Some places, depending how bad they need you, they might recycle you and let you try again. But since this game takes place in the US, the character's application could be interpreted in 2 ways. Either he was hired and requested to work at the main downtown office, or he had already obtained his post certification from the state and applied to Raccoon City Police Department. But it was written this way because in Japan, you could be hired in a prefectural police, but have to ask for a transfer to a police box, which is like a branch in a police station. Apparently, you go there for 3 years, and that's not how it works in the US. I tried doing some research on this, and because it's so different from the US, I'm not sure if I got this 100% right. If there are any Japanese police somehow in the YouTube comments, just let me know. But from what I could tell, at least looking at the diagrams where they have all sorts of vehicles, personnel in the tens of thousands and 16 horses, it would make sense for them to be able to request a transfer as opposed to the way it's set up in the US. This is actual Tokyo Metro video.
Open the door, please.
You too, ma'am. Wait! What's this? A syringe? You're carrying drugs, right?
Look, it's the same color. They're drugs.
We found the drugs and the ammo. Where's the gun?
I don't know.
We found the drugs and the ammo.
Give me a break, detective.
Chief, he confessed.
I did not dub this, by the way. This is how they dubbed it. This dude looks like me when I was younger. I know why y'all be doing me like that. For Claire's background, she's an orphan. There's been a lot of debate online about her being a civilian and not having any official training. Her and Chris went through hard times. There's real life stories of foster homes making kids fight for snacks. Some kids who have hard upbringing have a certain mindset. The story says Chris trained her, and I'm going to assume it was intense. Not to mention civilians have access to all sorts of training. Realistically, there are family members that teach each other how to shoot, hunt, box, wrestle, etc. Some of the most high-speed officers and soldiers I've seen, they had those skills because of their background, rough upbringing, family in the military, or had some sort of hobby as a kid that translated really well to tactical skills. The best shooter in my basic training, he told me his Vietnam vet grandfather had him shooting and doing all sorts of drills. Water polo players tend to make Navy SEALs at a higher rate, followed by rugby, wrestlers, and boxers. This can apply to other things too. You want to justify a young character being really good at first aid, like Rebecca Chambers, who's supposedly a prodigy. Say they had a relative who was diabetic or needed at-home care, or parents who were doctors. Tactical considerations for zombies. I was going to cover this in the Resident Evil 1 video, but it applies to all Resident Evils except maybe 4 because of the Ganados or any of the special types of bioweapons. Zombies pose a low threat to someone in full gear. I know in movies and in like the Walking Dead series, they always manage to bite people even with full-on riot gear. I'm not sure how. But in reality, the areas a zombie might actually be able to bite or scratch and break the skin is somewhere around 40%. If they are wearing head protection and eye pro like they should instead of berets, even lower, 30%. No way teeth are getting through boots, knee pads, ballistic vests, or gloves. Although they have fingerless gloves, I prefer full gloves. You can still shoot with them, but whatever. Add in elbow pads, magazines, and cargo pockets, and you're talking about upper thighs, the calf and shin areas, neck, head, and arms, with forearms being the most likely spot someone is going to get bit unless they're falling asleep. And I do have to commend the movie World War Z because the main character realizes this and he makes some impromptu forearm armor. Now, zombies being a low threat, even though you have a full kit, doesn't mean that they are not a threat. Obviously, in high numbers, they are a threat, depending on the environment. So hallways, cramped conditions, alleyways, which Resident Evil sets you in, makes them a higher threat. The other consideration is cardio. I believe Resident Evil 2 and 1 take place in the span of one night. So let's say 8 to 12 hours. They are carrying around weapons, ammunition, ballistic vests, and running or doing light jogs for multiple hours, starting and stopping, adrenaline starting and dumping. This is going to affect everything from how much strength you could use to even how you shoot, which makes even regular zombies at hour, let's say 6 or 7, become a higher threat. I've had 1 or 2 24-hour missions, and I'll be honest, man, by hour 16, I was useless. The other thing that you can take into consideration that is probably not worth pursuing in a game like Resident Evil 1 or 2 is that there are anatomical limitations to being shot that are not just pain compliance. What I mean by that is there's a reason why you should or would want to shoot center mass before going for the head. So for those of you who don't know, typically law enforcement and military, we are trained to shoot center mass first and then go for the head. Because if you're tired, you're scared, your adrenaline's going, the likelihood of you missing is much higher. So you sort of want to hedge your bets. You shoot the areas that you can hit first and then you go for the kill shot. So 2 to the body, 1 to the head. But let's say zombies, you can only kill them by shooting them in the head. It might still be worth shooting them in the body. You might hit a joint, a spine, a clavicle, and that would mechanically and anatomically disable a zombie's use of an arm. So it's not like pain compliance, someone not being able to use their left arm because their shoulder socket was just blown out. And with zombies being a low threat, with a bite that is, they would have to grapple you with both their hands to try and get to those areas that are exposed. If they only have one arm and a mouth or one leg, because let's say you blew out their hip while you were going center mass, that makes it a lot harder for them to be able to bite you. Now, remember how I said that, if you have your knee pads and you have your boot and you have your gloves, they won't be able to bite you. By the way, most tactical gloves are made out of Kevlar or some sort of material so that when you stick your hand in someone's pocket, you don't get your fingers poked by heroin needles or whatever. That's why I said the hand's not really that much of a vulnerable spot. But anyways, earlier I was saying how there's just a lot of areas that zombies can't really bite you. Well, that all changes once you have these special zombies.
Special zombie types.
A dog is perfectly positioned to bite you right in the shin and calf area, and since they can still jump, dogs retain their physical abilities unlike human zombies for some reason. Dogs and some of the other crazy threats, lickers and the weird ninja battletoad zombies, they are very dangerous. From a tactical perspective, dogs in Resident Evil are like a more dangerous version of a police or military dog. Presents a smaller target than a person. Very fast, athletic, and can inflict a lot of damage to your vulnerable areas. As far as any of these special zombie types, a lot of them have scales, thick skin, or high resistance to damage. So a real-world equivalent would be a fully armored combatant. And we've seen how difficult it is to deal with that in an urban setting. Anyways, we've already gone over time. Just as a conclusion, I get why writers pick their battles, right? You should only go as realistic as you can afford and as your story or game requires. At the end of the day, regardless of whether this is tactically viable or not, this being a fun game or a compelling story really trumps everything else. I think for EP3, we're just going to take a break from Resident Evil. But anyways, that's it for episode 2. Peace.